Hey guys, it's Chris with Kingship Tech. Thanks for coming to the channel. I'm out here just enjoying some time with the kiddos over here playing with cars. Anytime's a good time to do a video amateur tech style review. Alright, so why did I pick this camera, say, over the 6D Mark II? Now, the 6D Mark II was on my top of my list because it met every criteria I was looking for, but then it was probably a little over the top as well. So the 6D Mark II is a full-frame camera, just like this is a full-frame camera, but it is a DSLR body, so it is naturally a lot larger in size. I'll go ahead and post the weights right here for compared to the EOS RP and the Canon 6D Mark II. Yes, it was a smaller DSLR compared to, like, say, the 5D, so it was doable, but it's still heavy. It's still a DSLR. It's still naturally bigger. It had 24 frames per second, which I really wanted. It had 60 frames per second. Pretty sure it had image to digital IS. It had the Digic 7 processor. It did everything really well. Whoa. So they're having fun over here, so you're gonna have to excuse some of this noise. The 6D Mark II was an all-around great package. It had the screen to the side, fully articulating touch screen. It had a battery, big fat battery in there, so the battery life was awesome, outstanding. You could last all day long probably on a single battery. And it's also weather sealed. That's a good thing too. It's a weather sealed body. So the cons of the 6D Mark II: size. That's a con. It's a little big. And once you start adding full frame glass, the glass is naturally going to be larger, bigger glass, so it's going to be just bigger. That's a pro, that's a con, whatever you want, however you want to take it. It's just what you got to do when you're going into the full frame, and I was willing to accept that. It's a mirrored camera, not mirrorless. So it has a mirror. It has it doesn't have an EVF, so you just had a regular old optical viewfinder. So you had to get used to using that. Which is really, if you're doing a lot of video, it's a non-issue because you see everything from the screen over here and it's the same. But when you're taking pictures, photography-related stuff, you had to train yourself to use your metering system as you actually should as a photographer anyways. And it's just an older system that I'm sure Canon's going to not support anymore or stop carrying. And not that it was a great camera, so that's the only really cons that I had. I wanted to go with a mirrorless system. The RP is smaller. It has the RF mount. I already mentioned this in the last video. It is for the future. It is of the future. But the Canon 6D Mark II, I still want one because I think it would go really well paired together with my Canon RP. For photography and videography. I think I would still love to do a hands-on comparison between these two because I think it's still an outstanding camera. That's the 6D Mark II. Very similar to this. It's basically using the same sensor as in the RP. The difference is that you has the Digic 8 processor, which handles low light a little bit better. The picture quality is a little bit better than in the 6D Mark II. So that you can see that's one of the differences. And the other cool thing was that the EF mounted lenses obviously go right onto the camera, so there was no need to adapt it, and the lenses are plentiful. The RF mounted lenses, there's not very many RF lenses, and the ones that are out there are pretty spendy. And so you just have to take that under consideration. I'm using this with an adapter. It does make everything a little bit bigger overall, but with this lens, it's not too big because it's a nice, compact, small little lens. All right, let's move on to the next camera. Now, you're probably thinking, Chris, the Canon RP doesn't have 24 frames per second, and that's what you said you must have. I'm talking to myself. Yeah. And so, yeah, you're right. And actually, that was the biggest struggle I had, was that it had no 24p. And I was like, you know what, we all have to make adjustments. We all have to make compromises. And really, we just have to get over being the biggest whiners out there. And I totally get it. Like, if you're gonna spend like that much money on a camera, like the $1,000 range, you kind of want it to be what you want. So I figured, for right now, I could probably get away with 30p. I use 60p a lot for slow-mo, which is acceptable. But 30p, I was like, We can make it work, and that's I'm serious. That was probably the biggest flip-flop I've had to think about, was getting this or the 6D Mark II. But overall, I think I got the better camera. Absolutely the best for me. What other camera does this compare to that I was going to think about was the EOS R. That is a $2,000 camera body only. There were things about it that were really cool. It had this fancy dancy little push button menu system, so you can toggle, flip through all the menus. But you know what? From some of the reviews that I looked at, and even when I was handling it with myself, it was kind of cumbersome to push the button on the top, the function button, scroll through all the menu systems, either video mode or photography mode. And I'm sure you would get used to it, but I like the like the RP has it, the 6D had it. It's a toggle to go from like C1, C2, C3, manual mode, video mode, those kind of things. And so I like that feature. I like the RP better for that reason. It's simpler, less stuff to fail, I guess. It's just simpler, right? It had that little swipe thing, which I think is like that swipe bar on the thumb part. I think that's a really cool design. I would have liked it because you could set it to whatever you want. Overall though, it wasn't like a need for it. The only thing that the EOS R had that the RP didn't was 24 frames per second. I mean, the EOS R has 120 frames per second, but in 720p, I believe. And so that's what my Canon M50 had, and I never used it because you lost your autofocus and had to switch to manual focus. The EOS R and the RP are pretty darn close. The EOS R had the bigger sensor size. Which is, again, not a big deal for me. I don't blow up pictures like crazy. So I don't know. I feel like the RP was the best budget. I didn't need some of those features in the R. I didn't need them for what I do. I just didn't do it. The 4K, like if you want 4K, I think it's definitely better on the EOS R. I don't use 4K. It's not like a requirement for me, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me. Why not save some money and get the RP? And you know what? It turned out to be in my favor. Woohoo! It turned out in my favor because I'm getting my 24p like I always wanted, like I wanted from the very beginning. I'm blessed for that. So there's the EOS R. Definitely it's bigger body, and really that's some of the only differences. The bigger battery, so battery lasted longer. The better 4K if you care about that. More buttons and dials. I had that swipe button for your thumb, and I had that digital toggle instead of the manual toggle on the top, the swivel thing. EOS R is still a nice camera. All right, on to the next camera. So I hate to mention this because you're probably going to think right now, like, how does this compare? But I'm going to talk about the Canon M50 because, well, that was my go-to camera. That was my everyday camera for vlogging, for video making, for all my creative stuff. So let's talk about the Canon M50. The Canon M50 is small. It's tiny, and it's perfect. It's a APS-C size sensor, so it's not full frame. So you're kind of comparing apples to oranges here. But let's just say you're in the market for a camera. Okay, now you're looking for a Canon M50 in the used market. You can typically find it for $500, if not a little bit cheaper, especially now with new cameras coming out. People are offloading the M50. It's an awesome camera. It does everything well. $500. And then you're going to want a lens. So another, if you want the wide angle for vlogging, it's like $250 minimum, more like $300 for that ultra wide angle lens. Or you buy the adapter with the 10 to 18. Awesome setup, but it's not fast. So then you're wanting to get another fast lens because it doesn't do well in low light. And the list goes on and on. By the time you're said and done, you're in the $1,000 range or more. That's what I was sitting at, more than $1,000, because I had my $600 lens here. I had the speed booster for another $160. I had the camera, so we're already well over $1,300 for the setup. Plus I had to buy a whole bunch of batteries because those batteries are even smaller. The list goes on. The Canon M50 though was an outstanding camera. There's no reason why it shouldn't be up there with one of the best budget-friendly do everything type cameras. It did 24p, did 60p, did even 4K if you were into 4K. It had the slow-mo like I talked about before, 120p, but in 720. But it small, compact, it served a purpose. You did suffer in low light, like I said, so you had to keep that in mind. It got super grainy after 3200 ISO. I think it was unusable after that. Well, that's a personal preference, but it was reliable. It did a good job. If you're comparing the RP to this, wow, it's so competitive. Like, why wouldn't you just save a little bit more and go with the RP? Or if you already had the M50, the RP is a definite, it's absolutely going to be a perfect pairing for the two. Like in the future, when they come out with a Canon M50 Mark II, or maybe something that's a little bit more pro for APS-C lineup, the M6 now is actually going to be even more attractive now that they're coming out with 24p early next year. I'm getting my 24p this month. Yes, month. And the 90D is getting it this month as well. The 90D now is going to be a terrific camera to get in my book, and that's where Canon again is going to retake the market when it comes to video photography work. It's going to be a do everything camera, do everything brand again. The M50, the RP, very comparable, though the RP just definitely excels in every way now. It's a little bit bigger body, but not too big. The beauty of the RP is you get that full frame look. Right here, 2.8, and well, I'm probably overexposed now that I'm thinking about that. I'll be able to bring it down in post. That might be a benefit of also having full frame, of being able to handle some dynamic range easier. The EOS RP definitely wins out hands down for looks, feel, pro features. It has a better battery. Even though it has the LPE17 batteries, which is the same as the Canon M6 Mark II, the Canon M6, the M5 series, even though it has that small battery and not the big ones that came with the 60 Mark II and the EOS R, it still lasts a good amount of time, which impressed me. I still invested in some more batteries because it was a good idea. I was impressed with the battery life in this thing overall. Compared to the M50, it's more. With the 24p coming out, I'm gonna exhaust myself saying this because I'm so excited for the 24p. Canon M50, EOS RP, great cameras to have together because they're purpose-oriented cameras. You have to know that. Don't take that out of context. It's a purpose-driven camera. This again is why I chose the RP over the M50. Yeah. Alright, so to sum this up, it wasn't like an extreme in-depth review on like other cameras because obviously I didn't get to physically have them here, but I did get to play with them in person another time. Hopefully you can hear me with the wind behind me, but this camera is turning out to be actually perfect, absolutely perfect. I think it does everything. The picture quality I couldn't be happier with. I downloaded a Cine-style picture profile. It's been perfect. I mean, it's easy to grade the pictures that I've been getting. I'll go ahead and show up some samples of the picture quality I've been getting with this lens and this camera body. Man, I just can't say enough. I highly recommend the Canon EOS RP for people that are wanting to get into full frame if they're already in APS-C, or let's say you're wanting to get into cameras altogether. I think this is a perfect starter camera to go with. It has the future in mind, the Canon RF mount, which I think they're going to pursue, and then it still is capable of handling EF lenses. If you have a handful of lenses already, it's going to be great for that. I'm serious, I don't think there's a better camera out there if you want everything. A video, photography, if you're a hybrid shooter, it's lightweight, it's easy to take with you, and it does everything really well. And now that they're going to have the full gamut, 24, 30, 60, man, it's gonna be perfect. I think this might be the last video I put out here with 30p. The rest of them coming up is going to be 24p, and I'm going to love it that much more. I hope you like that. Please subscribe if you haven't been already subscribed to my channel. Amateur tech related stuff. If you want to see more videos, comment down below for something you're interested in. If you want to talk, I'm going to start a video pretty soon, videos called Camera Talk specifically, where we're going to talk about cameras, specific cameras. Let's do that. Let's do that together, guys. So let's grow this channel. Subscribe. Thank you. See you later.